Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back. My name is Alicia, and what you are about to watch is a class replay, a replay of a class that I taught live on Zoom. So there were people hanging out with me live from all over the world. They were in the chat, kind of talking to each other, talking to me. We had a Q&A afterwards, and none of that is included in this replay video. You're basically going to get the teaching portion. You're going to get the slides that I used in this class, and you're going to learn a lot about fascia from my perspective. I'm not claiming this is everything you could know about fascia, but it's a lot. I'm giving you a lot of information in this class. And of course, fascia is one of my favorite topics. This YouTube channel is full of videos all about fascia and about fascia release and how to utilize knowledge of fascia and its role in our body to resolve pain, to regenerate, to heal trauma. So I touch on all of those topics in this class. I'm really excited to present this class replay here on YouTube for you. And what I want you to know is that if you'd like to join free classes like this with me live on Zoom, where you can come on and ask questions and talk to me or get in the chat, you can do that and you're invited. And the way you can do that is by joining the free membership tier that I have created inside the new school that I'm opening. So as I'm filming this video, it's the end of May 2024. On June 2nd, 2024, we are going to open enrollment for the School for Living Science. So we're going to leave some links in the description where you can learn about that. But we're going to pin a comment, in the comment section under this video where you can join the free membership tier that I have created, where you can RSVP to free events, free classes that I'm teaching, where you can access a replay library of past classes that I have taught, like this one you're about to watch. It's going to make things so much easier. I have been online for so many years now, and most of the time when I teach free classes, I have to have people register for them, and then I send the Zoom links by email and all these email reminders, and then I have to send the replay and I have to upload the replay somewhere. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of that, like you're the one out there on my email list trying to participate, it's so annoying to search through your email inbox for these Zoom links and for the replay links, and everything's kind of disorganized and it's hard to find. And inside this free membership tier, everything's going to be super easy to find. You'll be able to see all the live classes that I'm teaching in the future in your time zone. You can RSVP to them. You can add them to your Google Calendar or your Apple or whatever. And then you can easily access all of the replays. So I'm super excited about this. We've had about 300 people join so far, which is really cool. It's only been open a couple days. So I'm hoping to grow this free membership tier and create some free resources that are off YouTube, off the public platforms, so people feel more free to write comments, to share, to talk to each other. So with that said, you're about to watch this class on fascia. I'm really excited to offer it here. I'm sharing the most important pieces of information I believe you should know if you're trying to change your fascia, if you're trying to work with fascia as a practitioner, perhaps, if you are trying to heal trauma through something like fascia release, if you're trying to resolve pain. I'm sharing the most important lessons I've learned working with people in pain since 2011. And then going back to 2008, I've been immersed in the world of fascia since then. So in 2011, I started utilizing a mapping methodology that I call Kinetics, to find root causes of pain and disease. So most of what I'm teaching is from that mapping methodology, but some of it I've learned by reading books or reading research papers and science papers and things like that, and then testing what I read in those science papers in my laboratory, which is my private practice. So I'm a big fan of experimentation. I'm a big fan of testing knowledge through direct experience. So please don't take anything I say in this class as gospel. Go test it on your body, test it in your life, test it against, your lived experience. But with that, I present to you Secrets of Fascia. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to share today some of the things that I've learned by reading research papers and books. And I will tell you what the books are that I've read. There are very, very few. In fact, there's only one, I think, that I'll recommend. But most of what I'm going to share, I learned by stepping on people from working in my private practice. And this is how I recommend you learn anything. So please don't take anything I say as gospel. Don't outsource authority to me. Go do your own research. This is, again, something I'd actually love to do in the school, because if you ever conduct an experiment and you're like, Alicia, I think you're wrong about something, great. I would love that, because I want to learn from you, and I'm probably wrong sometimes. So I always reserve the right to get things wrong and change my mind like next year or tomorrow. And I like learning from life. So if we can't test the knowledge that we're learning, for example, that we read in a research paper or a book, how do we really know it's true? And so I recommend that you test anything you hear about or read about, whether it's from me or someone else, and come up with ways where you can earn that knowledge for yourself. So it's my belief that we don't know anything unless we've lived through it. We've learned through direct experience. For example, you can watch all the, Thai cooking videos that you want on YouTube, but until you actually cook Thai food consistently and get it right, you can't call yourself proficient at cooking Thai food. You can't say, I know how to cook Thai food. You can't say you know it until you do it. So I recommend knowing all this about fascia by doing it rather than listening to me. So we're going to talk about some of the physical, spiritual laws that govern your capacity for healing, regeneration, and freedom. Oops. Okay. So most of you know me, but if in case you didn't or you're brand new here, my name is Alicia. I've been obsessed with freedom my whole life, but the reason I was obsessed with freedom, or have been, is because I was in severe pain. So I felt anything but free. I felt haunted. I felt tortured. Wasn't sure life would be worth living for a long time. And I've discovered that by learning what I'm made of and how I function, I have co-creative powers with my body. And I want to offer you that same path. So my mission is really to give you the knowledge and resources you need to have co-creative powers with your body for healing, regeneration, and freedom. So this is just a interesting picture comparison of me right before the most traumatizing period of my life, which was from 13 to 15 and a half, and then during it. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you might be able to see in this photo as we talk about these secrets of fascia. It is my opinion that the body does keep score. It's kind of a controversial topic out there. That's a book by Bessel van der Kolk that you could read. However, I'm not actually a huge fan of the way he talks about that in that book, although I have a lot of respect for the research he's done and the work he's done, bringing awareness to how trauma affects the body. The reason I don't love how he talks about it is that, at least from my perspective, when I read the book, it seemed like he was kind of painting a picture of traumatized people as being first victims of other human beings predominantly, and then a victim to their body or of their body. And I don't see it that way. I think our body is actually the most amazing partner we have for protection when we need it, and then healing, and then freedom. So our bodies are amazing. Our bodies are capable of way more than we could possibly imagine. And so I hope you have hope and inspiration through this, through this class today, learning some of these things. So I don't believe that anything that's happened to you or me is permanent. We can undo it. So if you look at the picture on the left, that's me, my face right before all this stuff happened. And the one on the right is like a year later. And you can see I've kind of retreated back into myself. I have a ton of inflammation in my face. My skin looks thick. I look like I'm putting on a turtle shell, basically. That's how I look at it. And I'm not going to go too deep into my story today, because otherwise we wouldn't get to all these secrets of fascia. But that trauma did involve sexual violations and a lot of other things. So it was a very horrific period of my life. And what happened is that I ended up, well, I didn't realize this actually until 2020, but I stopped crying and I stopped being able to feel emotions really when I was 10. And so by the time this event happened when I was 13, it just kind of like did me in. And so from 10 to 24, I couldn't cry. And I kind of knew something was wrong, but I had no idea what to do about it. I couldn't run for 8 years or hike for 6 due to debilitating knee pain. I entered adulthood thinking I was broken, defective, and unlovable. So I don't know if any of you can relate, but that was my story. So what I want to share with you today, and we're gonna weave in and out of fascia here because I'm imagining that you all want to know about fascia for specific reasons. Maybe you have clients you're working with, or maybe you're working with yourself. Maybe you are your client. You want to heal something. You want to resolve pain. Maybe you want to regenerate or age gracefully or optimize your body. But I have no idea, and I don't believe anyone else does, why your body is expressing what it's expressing, if there's pain happening or some kind of health challenge. But one thing I am certain of is that you hold the keys. Your body knows exactly what is happening and why. And I believe that healing and freedom happen by getting to know yourself. So rather than outsourcing authority to someone else, I recommend getting to know yourself. And the best practitioners on this planet, in my opinion, are the ones who help you do that. I run as fast and as far away as I can from practitioners who claim to be experts, who have the answers, who treat me like I'm stupid. And I don't, need to know what's going on with my body. I just need to follow their advice. That's not who I'm looking for anyway. And so it's my conviction that when you understand what you're made of and how you function, and you've gotten to know yourself at that level, you can always meet your own needs. So you can meet your physical needs, you can meet your soul needs and your spiritual needs, your relational needs, and you won't be confused by anything that's happening. And your body is the partner that will give you all that information, because we don't know anything without a body. So this is a longer story than I'm going to go into today, and some of you have heard it, but I tried doctors, I tried therapists, I tried teachers to help me resolve this knee pain and the systemic tension I had and this jaw pain. And none of them could help me. And then in 2011, I asked my best friend, Jess, if she would learn to step on me and help me run and hike again. And she said, yes. She said, sure, that sounds fun. And it was. And the very short story is that a few weeks later, I was running and hiking again. But you're going to see through this presentation why working with Jess was so different. And why my fascia responded so positively and so fast to that experience versus some of the other experiences that I had. Because, this is why. This is the most important secret of fascia to know. Fascia will not change just because we want it to or perform certain techniques. So I want to pause here for a moment. This is the most important thing for you to get out of this whole presentation. We have a tendency today to think that if we could just learn, how to change our fascia, then we could make tight fascia loose again, or we could make dense fascia supple and everything would be okay. We could resolve our pain. We could, move our lymph. We could detox our body. Or maybe you want to learn about something else in your organism, and you think if you just learn a protocol like cold plunging, or maybe you've been told by the internet that sauna has X, Y, and Z benefits, and so you get in a sauna expecting those benefits. But I don't know if you've noticed, but like your body doesn't do things just because you want them to. Like bodies don't do what we want them to just because we want them to. And everybody responds differently. So why is this the most important secret of fascia? Well, I mean, if you're going to try to learn kinetics, or maybe you're on YouTube doing my fascia release techniques, or you're a practitioner or body worker or somebody working with fascia in some kind of way, or you're working on yourself, if you expect your fascia to change just because you're applying a technique or a protocol, you're on the wrong path, in my opinion. You might get results, because a lot of people do, but it's you won't know why. You will not know why. And if you don't get results, you won't know why, and you'll feel frustrated or defective. So, but this one thing about fascia is the most fascinating to me, because we have this tendency to think, oh, I'm in pain. I've heard about this thing called fascia or fascia release. I think it's going to help me. I'm going to go to a practitioner, or I'm going to go on YouTube, or I'm going to grab my foam roller. But if you don't know why you're doing it, like why do we have the instinct to do something like fascia release if we're in pain, for example? That suggests to me we don't know a whole lot about pain or fascia, because if you knew a lot about pain, that might not be what you would do. You might do something else because the pain might be actually asking for something other than fascia release. And so we're going to, again, talk about pain tomorrow. But why is this so important? Fascia won't change just because we want it to. So I'm curious to have you put in the chat. Have you ever tried to do fascia release to change something and just had it not work? You know, maybe you felt frustrated. Maybe you had no idea what you were doing. Maybe it made things worse, because that actually can happen. And you're like, God, I don't know. I see all these comments on Alicia's YouTube videos and people are getting results, but I have no idea why my body's doing what it's doing. So this is one of the reasons I stopped teaching self-fascia release, just one of them. Here's something that will help us understand this law. So this is a teeter-totter, duh. And teeter-totters will always give you the same result when you do the same thing. So if you put, one boulder, let's say, on one side and 3 on the other, every single time you do that, you will get the same result, which is that when you put 3 on, the side with only 1 will go down and the other one will go up. Okay. These are laws of physics, the laws of the physical world, but that's not how a human body behaves. When you apply fascia release to a body, it doesn't always respond the same way. So there's something happening within us that is very different from what's happening out there in the world, where human beings aren't part of the equation. So fascia appears to be governed by higher, and I would say spiritual, laws. There is something about being human that affects our body, that affects our fascia, that affects every part of us. And we have to understand those physical, spiritual laws to understand why, when you apply fascia release, for example, you don't always get the result you're looking for. So that is really my mission, again, with the school. And you're going to get some of that today, like some of these physical, spiritual laws. So there are physical laws governing things like this. But when it comes to human beings and fascia, we have to look for physical, spiritual laws. And they overlap, and it's really complex. And we can learn it all, I believe, but not all at once. So that's why the core curriculum of the school will be about a year long. It's going to take us about a year to meander through the human organism to give you full understanding of what you're made of and how you function, so you can have co-creative powers with your body. All right, so what exactly is fascia, in case you're new here or you want to know my interpretation of what fascia is? So fascia is also called connective tissue, and it's the most abundant tissue in the body. We have structural fascia that's made of collagen and elastin, and that's the fascia that wraps every nerve ending, every fibril of muscle tissue, muscle bundle, organ, blood vessel, and bone. Our tendons and ligaments are dense pieces of collagen-rich fascia. So I want to pause here for a moment, because I actually was just watching a YouTube video the other day, because I like to see what other people are saying about fascia. And it was a yoga body channel, I think, video on fascia. And the guy said, if you have a fascia, you can get fascia injuries, which are different than injuries to your tendons and ligaments. And I about, fell off my chair when I heard that, because I was like, what do you mean? And this video has been viewed 1 million times. Like, tendons and ligaments are fascia. It's the fascia that comes out of the musculature and turns into tendon and ligament and then attaches to your bone. Or that's a tendon, ligaments attach bone to bone. And they're just really dense versions of fascia, but it's all connected. We have the superficial fascia is just under the skin, and it houses the entire lymph system. So that's very important. That's the part of us that, takes in nutrients that we might need that we're getting through the skin, and then ushers toxins out. And it's really the extracellular matrix part of fascia that is the most fascinating to me and the least understood. But it's this ECM, which bathes and nourishes every cell of the body in life-sustaining water. And it has piezoelectric potential. And that piezoelectric potential we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it powers every system of the body. So we're going to talk about this again also a little later, but partner fascia release, in my opinion, is the best diagnostics tool I know of for finding root causes of pain and disease. And it's because we're targeting fascia, but we are mapping the whole human organism first. So we're doing it to gather data instead of to create change. Well, we're actually trying to do both at once. So partner fascia release is diagnostic and curative. We're doing the mapping process while doing partner fascia release. So somebody might get a really rapid instant result, but our goal is also to find out why. Why'd you get a result? Because ideally you want to know why you get a positive result so that you can repeat it if necessary, or it might tell you something about what you can do to prevent the pain or disease from coming back. And then if you don't get a result, hopefully you get the data you need to get a result or to form a theory about how to get a result. And we can touch all of these elements of the body working with partner fascia release, but there's an element of partner fascia release that's absolutely unavailable in things like self-fascia release, for example. And then working with something like massage, where it's more passive, is just doesn't have as much potential to give us the information we need or to create the change that we want. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I guess I'll read this. So this is a quote by Dr. Andrew Still. He is he's the father of osteopathy, if you've heard of it. And this quote circulates the internet, and people say, it might be him, might not be him. People attribute it to him, so I don't know, but I'm just going to attribute it to him. I know of no part of the body that equals the fascia as a hunting ground. It belts each muscle, vein, nerve, and all the organs of the body. It is almost a network of nerves, cells, and tubes running to and from it. This connecting substance must be free at all parts to receive and discharge fluids and use them in sustaining life, and eject all impurities, that health may not be impaired by dead and poisonous fluids. By its action we live, and by its failure we shrink, or swell and die. So I want to pause there for a second. So some people, when I step on them, for example, have really brittle, dehydrated fascia. So by its action we live, and by its failure we shrink. So as we age, we often shrink. People get, shorter, they get smaller, they get denser, they get more brittle. But some people swell and get, like in that picture of me when I was younger, and we get chronic inflammation, and that's not good either. So both of those things, though, are dependent on healthy functioning of the fascial system. So this is a favorite quote. You've probably heard it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's just a funny picture there of me backpacking with my friend Carrie. She's the fate I'm not looking at. So this is going to help us move into, some secrets of fascia, but also like why can't we just apply techniques to fascia and have it change? What's going on there? What do we need to learn to understand how to actually work with our fascia? Oh, see, I told you I didn't know what was going to happen. This slide is probably not the best timed slide. So I already said that partner fascia release is the best diagnostics tool in my opinion. So I'm going to move on now. So this is maybe the most important informational part of this presentation. It's not necessarily about fascia, except that it is because it has to do with the reason we can't just apply techniques and protocols to fascia to change it. So we only know ourselves by bumping up against others, and this is especially true with other human beings, but it's also true that we wouldn't know ourselves unless we bumped up against something not us. Like, if you really stop and think about it for a moment, we only know that we care about something or think something is wrong, for example, because that wrong thing is happening. So something wrong happens and I have a reaction in me that has to do with my values or my morals or my conscience. And something in me says that's wrong. But I only know that I think that that's wrong because it's happening. And simultaneously, if I see something good or something inspiring, I only actually know that I find that inspiring because it's outside me and I see it. I bump up against it. And as human beings, we really need mirrors to see ourselves. As I was saying earlier, it's really hard to see ourselves objectively. It's really hard to see other people objectively too. But that is one of my missions in life, is to help us see ourselves and each other more objectively, like more truthfully. Because most of the time we're projecting onto our bodies, onto life, onto other people, and we're not saying things as they are. And we really need, other people to help us see ourselves as we are, but also as we could become. And this was a moment that some of you might be familiar with. And I thought I've actually shared this slide before in the Secrets of Fascia I did two years ago. But I figured I would keep it because I recently put out a series of 3 podcasts with my friend Jonah. And this is Jonah. So some of you might recognize him from the podcast. But Jonah is somebody that I dated when I was 18. And he broke up with me 6 months after we started dating because he said, I can't feel you. Like, I don't know where you are. I don't think you're feeling a whole lot. And I want to be with someone who feels. Okay, so that's a mirror. And it was very painful, but it was also very helpful. It was a hard, painful truth that I had been running from myself. And I thought, being 18, that if I pretended I could feel, then I could get away with it. But that's not true. And I wasn't ready in myself yet to face that truth on my own. It took Jonas saying that to me to kind of wake me up. So I wasn't feeling emotions. I didn't even cry when he broke up with me. But what I was feeling was a whole lot of physical pain. So I had really bad abdominal pain. I had jaw pain and jaw popping. I had systemic tension, anxiety, chronic soft tissue pain, head to toe, and then knee pain that prevented me from running and hiking, which were the only 2 activities that gave me any kind of peace or joy. And so this is one of the laws, physical, spiritual laws, that will show up when we try to work with fascia. And I hope it becomes apparent as we move through these slides. We can only heal what we're willing to face and feel. And we will not be granted access to the world of fascia until we are ready to do this. So if you're not ready, you'll be pushed out. You'll be kicked out, basically. You'll be kicked out of the world of fascia and you will be told to deal with your feelings, basically. So it is my belief that complete healing happens within relationship, not in isolation. That's another reason I stopped teaching the self-fascia release to focus on teaching kinetics. I believe that all disease or dis-ease is rooted in relational conflict. I don't just mean with human beings, though. I mean, you might be in conflict with yourself. If you're anything like me, I'm in like constant conflict with myself. And I'm trying to work on it all the time. But sometimes I sit on the couch instead of going for a run. But then I'm mad at myself for doing that, and I'm in conflict. Or sometimes I'm not acting on my conscience and then it eats away at me. It really bugs me. Sometimes I don't say something or speak up when I know that I should, and then I'm in conflict with myself again. So we end up in relational conflict with ourselves, with our bodies. So for like 20 years, I hated my body. Maybe not quite that long, but maybe 10, 15 years. I hated my body. I thought my body was against me. I thought my body was betraying me. I thought my body was defective, that I was like an unlucky human who got a defective body. That I just won the I won the bad lottery. So me and my body were in conflict. I was definitely in conflict with other people. We can be in conflict with nature. We can have toxins in our body. We might be using toxins in our home and have some conflict there with the laws of, that are governing this planet and its health. And we could potentially be in conflict with all of the above. And our bodies show us these conflicts. So our bodies will show us the conflicts asking for resolution. And I believe our bodies are really a reflection of both us and the world. Because if you go deep enough into the body, you're going to find the world. You're going to find light photons and electromagnetism, and you're going to find bacteria, and you're going to find the things you ate this morning. So you contain the world, but your body is also reflecting you to you all the time. And that is certainly true about fascia. All right, so here are some secrets of fascia. Like I told you, I'm going to kind of blow through these like, drinking from a fire hose. So fascia can thicken in response to prolonged fear. That's what I believe was happening to me. I still have very thick fascia. I'm not sure you can ever like unthicken it, but you can make it more supple. You don't have to have pain that goes along with it. But I still have thick fascia in certain places. Fascia can contract independent of muscles. My theory about this is that is one of its roles, one of the roles that it plays for us, which is to protect us when we can't protect ourselves. So if you go under anesthesia, you're getting surgery, your fascia might contract to protect you. If you're getting attacked and you're not able to protect yourself, or something comes out of nowhere, like a car accident, your fascia will contract to protect you because you can't act fast enough to protect yourself. All neural messages travel through fascia and create grooves or memory tracks there. So I like to think about fascia as our habit body. It's both a habit body of like our probably our thought habits and our the things we've memorized in terms of beliefs and stories and meanings, but also our posture, the posture and shapes that we take most consistently. Our fascia will memorize that and hold that shape. And so if you sit all day, your fascia will mold itself to the shape of sitting. And that becomes your habit body. You have a habit body of sitting. The vagus nerve is wrapped in fascia and contains fascia within it that extends to every organ, tissue, and cell in the body. And the vagus nerve is connected to our social well-being. So if we feel, it's going to help us know if we feel safe, in danger, or in a life-threatening situation environmentally, but particularly socially. And that information is coming into the fascia first that wraps the vagus nerve, and then into the nerve, and then up to the brain so we can process that information and act on it. Fascia has its own rich nerve receptor network that exists outside the influence of the brain. This is fascinating to me. So a lot of people have called fascia an organ, a sensory organ. It's sensing everything all the time, whether we're tapped into that or not. But the thing is, we can tap into it. So we can become aware of whatever our fascia is aware of with training. So how do we create change in the fascia? Well, we have to reckon with the gatekeeper. So this is the thing that, this is the reason we can't just apply techniques and protocols to fascia and create the change we want automatically every time reliably. It's because of the nervous system and the soul and spiritual element of the human being. So I call the brain a labyrinth. In the core curriculum in the fall, we're going to go through a 3-month term called the Labyrinth and the Knowledge Field, where we're going to try to untangle subjective meanings and beliefs and subjective reality from objective reality. So you can start to tune into objective reality while also acknowledging where your subjective self comes into the equation. I also call it the meaning-making machine, because we are meaning-making machines. And I find this really fascinating because meaning is very important. There's a lot of talk on YouTube and the internet about the meaning crisis that we're in. But at the same time, meaning, like, the meaning of life, creating a meaningful career, for example, isn't the same thing as I have this pain, it's been here for 10 years, therefore I must be broken. that is me creating a meaning and attaching it to a physical experience I'm having that has nothing to do with objective reality. So if we can untangle our subjective projections, our beliefs and our stories and our meanings from what's actually happening physically, we will really start to get somewhere. So these subconscious blocks or programs are the meanings that we've assigned to feelings, to social interactions, to our worth, our self-identity, our body, like the way we look, its functionality, its purpose, to movement, to discomfort, to love and belonging, to the kind of world you live in, to your place in the world. It's an endless list. But we have all these meanings, and they are like a filter through which we see the world and ourselves and our body and every experience we have. And until we get them out of the way, we don't get to see what's true. We just see the meanings we've assigned to things. So take pain, for example. Pain is just information. And yet, we feel tortured by it. We feel haunted by it. We feel frustrated by it, maybe angry about it or victimized by it. Maybe you've been in pain like, a long time, like I was. So we attach all these meanings to it that have nothing to do with the objective reality of our body. And I wasn't able to heal until I got beyond those meanings. So our survival programs really are the tactics that we use to avoid our worst fears. So we all have fears of things like abandonment or rejection or fear of disappointment, which is a huge one that we don't talk about enough. Our fears of disappointment will keep us skeptical and cynical and stop us from even trying anything, or we'll give it like a half-hearted attempt. Maybe it's fascia release, maybe it's a career change, maybe it's learning kinetics even, I don't know. But you'll kind of like give it a half-hearted effort because you're doing this. And if you fail, you'll be able to say to yourself, well, I didn't give it my all this time. And so that's probably why I failed. And so you have a really nice justification for your failure. Whereas if you were to go all in on something, give it everything you possibly have, like everything, you leave nothing on the table, you give it everything you have physically and emotionally and mentally, and you fail, that could be a pain of disappointment you're not willing to face. We have fears of criticism, of course, of being left out, fear of being defective, fear of punishment, of humiliation, of making mistakes. And our fears show up as feelings, and we feel those feelings in our body. So it's really helpful to know what each of these kinds of feelings feel like so that we can identify them so that we don't let them stop us from actually pursuing what we want to pursue and achieving what we want to achieve. So another way of looking at this, and this is something I've had to work with most of my clients who have chronic pain, is that we have a preferred self and then we have a real self. And most of us go around pretty, deluding ourselves basically that we are our preferred self instead of who we actually are, in some sense. But if you remember, I said earlier, we need to see ourselves as we are now, but also as we could become. So we're not limited to who we are now. We can become what we want to become. We have unlimited possibility and potential within us. But we often go around preferring to be strong than helpless.
Oh, so I put my hand
out. So these are, some of mine, but then some that I've seen in other people. So one of my biggest patterns has been, I'd rather be strong than helpless. Like I'd rather put on a strong persona and appear strong and tough and nothing will really get to me. And like, it's all good, nothing you say will hurt me. But that's not actually true. But what that does is it protects me from intimacy, protects me from vulnerability. It protects me from this feeling of helplessness. So I definitely encourage you to get in touch with your I'd rather feelings. I'd rather be alone than rejected. I'd rather be skeptical than disappointed. I'd rather pretend I'm not hurting than tell people the truth, and then have them maybe reject me. I'd rather censor myself, et cetera, et cetera. So these fear patterns, our preferred self creates an armor. And it's really like, I'd rather feel this pain than that pain. But your true self is waiting to be acknowledged, reclaimed, and integrated. So your true self is the part of you that is helpless sometimes, is humiliated, feels broken, feels all these things. If you constantly try to run away from that self, you'll always be pretending. If you can accept your limitations and your deficiencies, and, you know, this is an unpopular topic to talk about, but I always love throwing it in just as a little curveball. But, you know, sometimes we wish harm on other people. Like, we're not all, you know, unicorns and rainbows inside. Like, we're tempted to do bad things. So if we can accept that about ourselves, then we can actually do something about it. But if we pretend to be something other than we are, we're in real trouble. So this is me learning to let go. This is one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn in my lifetime, is how to let go. Still learning, still practicing, but that will show up in your fascia. You know, that will show up if you're getting stepped on, potentially. We're just holding on. You don't want to let go. All right. So the nervous system reveals your preferred self. Fascia reveals universal truths. And we can't get into that world of fascia. We can't access it. We can't change fascia until we get through the preferred self, until we get through that gatekeeper, through the feelings that are guarding the entrance to the world of fascia. I want to share this quote, even though it's a long one, if I can. Let's see, my Zoom is blocking it. Okay. I just love this quote so much. Do you all know Viktor Frankl? Amazing man. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Jew taken into the Nazi concentration camps and survived, and then became a therapist. By declaring that man is responsible and must actualize the potential meaning of his life, I wish to stress that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world rather than within man or his own psyche, as though it were a closed system. I have termed this constitutive characteristic the self-transcendence of human existence. It denotes the fact that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself. What is called self-actualization is not an attainable aim at all, for the simple reason that the more one would strive for it, the more he would miss it. In other words, self-actualization is possible only as a side effect of self-transcendence. And it is my belief that there is no freedom without love. And so this quote and this concept is another reason I stopped teaching self-fascia release, because there we are trying to actualize our best body, heal ourselves by ourselves, alone, maybe at home with no one else there. And most of our deepest wounds, and a lot of the time the reason we end up in chronic pain, is because of our social wounds and our patterns related to human beings and our place in the world and our feeling of belonging, our sense of belonging. And we can't bump into those wounds and heal them by ourselves alone at home. So this is my mission with getting Kinetics out there and also opening the school, because we're going to do this together. So coming back to this story with Jess, this is why, in my opinion, I had, quote, a miraculous healing event in 2011 working with her. So prior to that, I had first encountered the world of fascia in 2008. I was in massage school. I learned a method called Rossiter, which I've talked about before. And I asked my teachers to help me hike and run again and figure out this knee pain that I had that was preventing me from hiking and running. And for about 2.5, 3 years, I probably worked with 12 various teachers of Rossiter at various levels, including Richard Rossiter, and no one could figure it out. No one could tell me why my knees hurt. No one was able to help me run again. I attended 40 days worth of these weekend workshop classes. I was totally obsessed trying to heal myself because I just felt certain that this fascia thing was the key. Like if I could just get stepped on in the right way, or if we could figure it out, that I would be able to hike and run again and feel free in my body and feel at peace and move all this tension and trauma out of my system. And then I moved to Colorado and I asked my friend Jess, would you learn to step on me? And she said, sure, that sounds fun. So the thing I want to share that's so important here. So, if you go back in your mind with me to that first slide, the secrets of fascia, where I said, the most important secret of fascia is that it won't change just because we want it to or perform certain techniques. There's something guarding it first. And that's that gatekeeper, that's that nervous system. And the fact is, with no malicious intention whatsoever, and it was completely unconscious, I believe, but all of my teachers were people I didn't feel completely safe with. I didn't feel loved by them. I didn't feel like if I needed to, I could have an emotional release. In fact, Richard Rossiter, in response to a question we asked one time in a class, what do you do if people have an emotional release? He said, I look at my watch and I tell them you have 30 seconds to stop crying, and then we're going to keep going. So you might imagine why I didn't feel, like I could be all of me there. Like I wanted to be able to be helpless me and strong me and humiliated me and broken me, but also hopeful me and the me that could see possibility. I wanted to be able to be all of those things, and I could be that with Jess. She knew my story. She knew my traumas. She loved me. I felt completely seen by her. And my fascia changed within weeks, like weeks. And so, if you're working with a practitioner, perhaps consider that maybe it's not the protocol, it's them, maybe, and it's probably not malicious, it's not intentional. And we enter kind of controversial territory here because professionals are told not to be personal with their clients. I think that's a mistake. I think we need to show up with love for our clients. So after this experience with Jess, that was my mission with my clients. Like I wanted to give my clients what Jess gave me. And I absolutely believe it was due to her presence that I created the change I did so quickly. But there were also very physical things that happened too. It's just that they weren't possible before then for a variety of reasons. So a couple of those reasons are that Rossiter, that method that I had learned in 2008, is a pin and stretch method. So that means, we're stepping on tissue, we're pinning it to the floor, and then stretching it like taffy. So I love this picture because it's literally what the Rossiter people are trying to do. And it's not that it's bad, but it's one way of working with fascia. And in my opinion, it's not the best way. In fact, fascia will form adhesions when it's getting overstretched. Now, pinning and stretching is preventive against this because you're pinning part of the tissue in between joints, but fascia doesn't like getting overstretched. Overstretched fascia has the most adhesions in the body, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. But it's a pin and stretch method. And I ended up kind of accidentally discovering the clunk and then started compressing and shearing fascia in 2009. I'm not going to tell that whole story today. But this is a great visual of compression and shearing and how different it is from pinning and stretching. So compression creates there's something coming in on both sides of an object. So let's say I'm stepping on your quad, you're sitting on the floor. Well, the floor is compressing it from the bottom, and my foot is compressing it from the top. But it has, if you see this, the most far left picture there on that top picture, where it says compression, it'll kind of bulge out, right? It has space to move out to the sides when it's compressed. And then I'm pinning it or compressing it to the bone instead of the floor, which allows for a shearing effect of these adhesions that are in the fascial system. So this shear picture here is a great visual of like what we're actually going for with kinetics. We're trying to compress and then shear fascial fibers that are stuck together to unstick them. And they have to go in two opposing directions to be able to get that effect. There's also something I'm going to talk about in just a moment that has to do with compression and shearing of water molecules. But right now we're just talking about actual fascial tissue, but of course there's water in fascia. But compression and shearing has a really different effect on fascia than pinning and stretching. So we're creating mechanical stress, but then we're harnessing that energy and performing the shear effect. And that's where we get a physiological result that is very, very positive, that has to do with our water body. So some more secrets of fascia here for you. I'm going to take a sip of water because I'm talking a lot. So fascia is mostly water, but it's mostly structured water. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Healthy fascia does not hurt when compressed. And this is the thing, this is kind of the secret. This is like the secret that helped me develop the mapping methodology. So in 2011, when Jess and I started stepping on each other, we were doing sessions together about 3 to 4 times a week. And after I was able to start running and hiking again without pain, we were still stepping 3 to 4 times a week and running immediately after. And then about 6 weeks into this process, and you might be wondering, why were you still stepping if your knees didn't hurt? And I'll answer that in a moment. But we did. We kept stepping on each other, and she didn't have any pain at the time. But we would step on each other 3 to 4 times a week and then go trail run. It was really fun. And running after getting stepped on is an amazing experience when you're getting these positive benefits physically, because you feel light and buoyant in your body. You feel like a kid again. Like, I don't know if any of you remember what you felt like as like a 7-year-old, but like, I felt like I could jump off the roof and not injure myself. I felt like I could climb trees and run all over. And, I was basically like a bouncy ball and I couldn't get hurt. That's how I felt. And I think we all did at a certain age. And of course, we're not like impervious to injury as children, but we're a lot more resilient than adults when we're kids. But that's how Jess and I started to feel, like kids. And so we kept doing it because we felt so freaking good. And then about 6 weeks later, it just stopped hurting to get stepped on at all anywhere. So I taught Jess the 40 or 50 techniques that I knew, and we were stepping on each other head to toe. We weren't just targeting one part of our bodies. And that whole experience is what taught me that healthy fascia doesn't hurt when it's compressed, and that we can take fascia way beyond, brittle and dehydrated to kind of like supple or soft again. We can actually optimize it. We can optimize our bodies, and that's a completely different experience than like the absence of pain. So I highly encourage you guys to go for optimization of your fascia versus the absence of pain or the absence of aches and, stiffness and all that. Fascia is hydrophilic and builds a zone of structured water on its surface that holds electrical charge, powering all biologic processes within the body. We're going to talk about that structured hydrophilic water stuff in just a sec. Fascia has up to 10 times as many nerve receptors than other tissues like muscle, such as mechanoreceptors, proprioceptors, interoceptors, blah, blah, blah. Neuroceptors, which are, what we would call pain receptors. So fascia, it's a sensory organ. We feel more through our fascia than we do any other tissue. We exchange communication and messages through fascia, period. All communication travels through fascia. And then fascia is piezoelectric. So an electrical charge is created whenever pressure and heat is applied. So think about that for a moment. If I'm stepping on you, I'm a warm being. I have blood in me. I'm hot. I'm warm. I'm not an inanimate object. So I'm applying mechanical, pressure to you when I compress your tissue. But there's also a little bit of heat that's created because I have thermal energy in me. And then through movement, because you're moving under me if we're doing kinetics, an electrical charge is created. It's amazing. It's really cool. You cannot do that with self-fascia release with a foam roller or a block or anything like that. So the inverse, though, is also true. So fascia is piezoelectric, which means that When mechanical stress and thermal energy is applied, electricity is created. But what it means that the inverse is also true is that when electricity or magnetism enters the body, fascia can deform. So I do believe that over the last 150 years, we are incurring invisible injuries because of non-native EMFs, basically, non-native electromagnetism. So human created, not natural. And we can undo a lot of this, but really only, through things like kinetics, working with another human being versus these inanimate objects. So fourth phase structured water. I'm going to touch on it very briefly, and this is a very blurry picture from The Fourth Phase of Water by Gerald Pollack, which I highly recommend reading if you like science. Essentially, it's 3 hydrogens and 2 oxygens that create a lattice shape or honeycomb shaped structure to water. So the best kind of example I could have you imagine right now, because some people, think this is a conspiracy theory or whatever. That's cool. But think about liquid water for a moment. I have water in my cup right here. It's very, very, very liquid. And we're told that structured water is gel-like, okay? We're also told that blood is like 90% water, maybe more than that. I might be getting that wrong, but it's like more than 90% water. So imagine that you've cut yourself. Why don't you just, like, really badly? Why doesn't water just gush out of you? It's a good question, right? If we have all this water in us, that's just like the water in my cup, that's very runny, very liquid, why doesn't it just like pour out of you if you get cut, or if you have surgery, or if you get in a car accident, something really bad happens to you? It doesn't do that because it's structured in our body. It's gel-like. So that gel-like water is protective, but it also serves a function of creating a positive and negative charge in the extracellular matrix part of our fascia that acts like a water battery to move blood, to move communication signals and fluids through our organism. So what I want to talk about now is something I absolutely love talking about this, but stress calls potential into play. We often think about the word stress as bad. Stress is bad. It's bad for you. You should try to de-stress. And that's a projection. That's a meaning. That's a story. It's not reality. Stress, I mean, it depends on how you define it, I guess. But if we think about physiology for a moment, we've got mechanical stress, like my student Carrie here stepping on Jason's perineal muscles. So there's mechanical stress happening through Carrie stepping on Jason. So that's stress. It's mechanical stress. It's a kind of stress. And as I just mentioned, electricity is going to get created the moment she does this, but then he's going to start moving. And so he's going to use the electricity and the mechanical energy coming into his body to create change. It's what we do with the stress that matters. It's not the stress. So there's mechanical stress, there's thermal stress, like too much heat, too much cold. So cold plunges are all the rage, the Wim Hof method, saunaing, right, to get those heat shock proteins or whatever. It's what we do with the stress that matters. If you get in a sauna and you don't sweat, like I used to not be able to sweat. So I would get in a sauna because it's supposed to be really good for you, and I was trying to detox mercury, but I would be in there 45 minutes not sweating, and then I would break out in goosebumps and feel completely nauseous, like I was going to throw up. So what my body was able to do with the stress of heat was not good. I couldn't do anything positive with it. It was like purely negative. Why? Again, we can't just apply protocols generically to everybody and expect them to produce reliable results like that teeter-totter, because human beings are governed by physical, spiritual laws, not just purely physical laws. I wasn't able to sweat because I had a hard time letting go. If you remember that picture of the octopus, like, here I am letting go. I have had to practice that, but it was a lesson I learned through many stories I won't share today. But in 2020, I realized I have a problem with letting go. I have a problem letting go of so many things. So I'm going to start practicing that. And when I started practicing that, and it was not meant to change my physiology, it was pretty much emotional, relational, trauma-based, people-based. But I actively took steps to start letting go of like my expectations that my parents be people they weren't, for example. And it was genuine and it was real. It wasn't just something I was saying. And then my body started sweating and I could go in the sauna and I could now harness that stress in a positive manner. So we really need to think about the human organism as a whole organism. And the way I like to define it is we're made of body, soul, and spirit. But we can't understand ourselves only in that limited context because we have to understand ourselves in the context of society, planet, and cosmos, because our body is governed by those laws too. The laws of relationship, the laws of human society, how we're treated when we're children, traumas that we go through, what we do as a result of the traumas we go through. And then, of course, all the way out to the cosmos, because we're affected by light and magnetism and the 5 kinetic energies of the planet. So I want to point out something here that is important if you want to make real change in your body, like to your actual tissues. So we can make real change to our bodies through the fascial system primarily to optimize blood circulation, to regenerate our tissues, to get blood to those joints so we don't have tendonitis or bursitis or arthritis. But it requires precision and it requires that we know what we're aiming at. And this, I believe, is a universal truth, but it equally applies to the physical, spiritual laws of human beings, is that precision of movement or of aim or of creating change requires a resisting force to push against. So if I don't have a resisting force to push against, I can't actually find myself. I can't even locate myself in space and time. But I definitely can't find my target. So think about a bow and arrow. An arrow by itself isn't very effective. You can't do a whole lot with it. You might be able to like stab something with it if you're, close up. But probably whatever it is you're trying to kill or hurt is going to run away because, you're not probably going to catch it and be able to do that. But if you put a bow in an arrow and give it something to, that resisting force to push against, now you can unleash that arrow. And if you practice as a human being shooting arrows, then you can have really precise aim. If you try to throw an arrow without a bow, it'll just lob all over the place. Like it won't have force. It won't have power. It won't have precision. It'll be impotent. And this, I believe, is true of human beings. We're constantly trying to avoid what wants to push against us because it's painful, because it's hard, because resistance creates, when something when something we want resists what we want it to do, we tend to then back away. But if we lean into the resistance instead, we can create real power and real change. But you could also think about dancing. People who dance by themselves have to use the ground to do anything cool. And that's the force that they're pushing against to twirl around and, maybe do flips and whatnot. But something really beautiful happens when you have another human being to push against. So it's not just about, killing anything or aiming at something like with a bow and arrow. It's also about, what do we want to create? Do we want to create something beautiful? Do we want to create change? What are we aiming at? So we really need this resisting force. And again, a foam roller, a ball, whatever it can't resist you. It does not have that intelligence to it. So fascia absorbs transmits and is transformed by the 5 kinetic energies of the planet: light, radiant energy, thermal energy, mechanical energy, sound or vibration, and electromagnetism. I've shared this slide before, so I'm not going to linger here too long. It's in a recent class replay that you can find inside that free membership. Fascia monitors, protects, nourishes, detox, connects, separates, and powers every individual part and system of our inner ecosystem. So it's just an amazing substance. I think it's why we're so fascinated by it. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was wondering, is there anything that human beings are as fascinated by, within our organism? And I don't think there is, except the brain. We're kind of obsessed with the brain. But people are just fascinated by fascia. You guys are probably here because you're fascinated by fascia. And I think the reason is it's complex, it's somewhat mysterious, it's not easy to pin down, and we tend to be fascinated by things that we don't quite understand. I am still learning things about fascia today, 16 years into my journey. So I'm not going to go too deep on this slide either. But if you really start learning about fascia, you're going to learn that it will teach you about relationships, because fascia is like the mediator of all relationships inside of us and outside of us. So fascia is the element through which all those communications happen between different elements in the body. Like if your liver wants to talk to your brain, or your nerves want to talk to your fascia, or your fascia wants to talk to your blood, like all those communications are happening through fascia. And it's just this really intelligent part of us. So just to kind of recap here, the nervous system is connected with threats to our survival. Of course, much, much more too, but I'm talking here about, why can't we create change to the fascial system just because we want to, or apply certain techniques and protocols? It'll activate our survival programs, basically. And then we have to deal with those first before we can get to the fascia. Fascia reveals the quality of our inner and outer ecologies. And so when I think about this is just pure objectivity. Like, I'm looking out my window right now. It's a very clear day. The sky is blue. There are trees outside my window. It's like everything that's out there, it just is. Like it's not, I might project a meaning onto it. I might, make a story up about it. But if I don't, and I just sort of witness it, I'm just witnessing truth. I'm witnessing life. And fascia is that life. It's what is. So if we can get beyond our programs, our meanings, our stories, and our beliefs, and access that world of fascia, then we get to see what is inside of us, that objective reality. Oh yeah, I've put this in here. So fascia versus the nervous system, something I'm going to talk about a lot in the Kinetics Academy, because if you're going to work with fascia, if you're going to step on people, you really need to know what's happening. Again, if we could just step on people, release fascia, and everybody who got stepped on would get out of pain instantly, then we'd have a completely different world. We wouldn't have a chronic pain epidemic. I'd be famous and rich, and but then I would actually not have any money at all, because everybody would just get stepped on a couple times. That'd be that. So we are much more complex than that. And I'm going to probably move on because I think I talked about most of this already. So I'm on a mission to get Kinetics out there because, like I mentioned, it's the partner fascia release is the best way I know of for mapping the whole human organism. And one of the reasons it's so powerful, besides all of the physiological stuff that I just mentioned, is because it will reveal those subconscious programs, those beliefs, the stories, the meanings, anything that's blocking our ability to see ourselves objectively through the nervous system. So we can map that very physically. But also because it's a relational activity that requires collaboration, which it turns out is a lot harder for people to do than it might seem at first, because you're stepping on someone, and if they have unhealthy fascia, it probably hurts a little bit. But then you have to work together. You have to work through that challenge of painful feelings to get to a result, which is a lot like intimate relationship. You have to work through painful experiences and work out, is one of us in charge and the other subservient? I mean, hopefully not. Okay, how do we work together? What if you want to do it one way and I want to do it another way? And this might sound complex and hard, but it's an amazing opportunity because it reveals our relationship patterns. And so that is also part of the mapping methodology that I use when I'm working with clients and then when I'm teaching students to do kinetics. And because of my origin story, because kinetics really was birthed in my experience with my friend Jess, I'm on a mission to get it out there into households as much as the offices of practitioners, because we can do this for each other. If Jess and I could do it, anyone can do it. She knew nothing about, physiology or fascia or pain or anything. She just loved me and she wanted to help me hike and run again. And she put herself in service of my goals and amazing things happened. So we can do that for each other at home. And then we can take that same philosophy and do that for our clients if you are a practitioner. So to me, real freedom is the ability to initiate our own thoughts, feelings, and actions instead of maybe repeating the habitual or automated thoughts, feelings, and actions of our nervous system or our parents or society or the government or your therapist or me. So for you, that means, activating the thoughts, feelings, and actions that originate from within your own unique and individual consciousness. Maybe you're looking for the freedom to heal yourself, to be your full self, to regenerate, and to evolve. All of that is possible for you. We've touched on today a lot of the physical aspects and some of the secrets of fascia that could help you do that. But there is this other soul and spiritual element that we really need to work with to do it in a way that's addressing what a human being is, what a whole human being is. I think it also involves reclaiming any, disowned parts of us and integrating them into the whole. So I love this quote by Brene Brown. Pain that is denied or ignored becomes fear or hate. So I mentioned before that I hated my body. So pain that is denied becomes hate. I hated my body. And then I was afraid of pain. So I could probably sum up most of the last 20 years of my life by saying I went on a journey to befriend pain and face my fears. And so that meant facing pain, really, because it was pain, both emotional and physical, that I was the most afraid of. And of course, our preferred self is part of our self-protection strategy. And so we're not, I don't believe in demonizing that or making ourselves wrong for, having that aspect to ourselves. It's an incredibly useful part of us that helps us survive. And then we can step outside the influence of the brain, that survival biology, to resolve chronic pain, to embody our true self, to regenerate, to tap into higher states of consciousness, to tap into that sensing organ called fascia. But to do that, you really have to get outside the influence of your habitual nervous system, your habitual programs, your brain. And this is a quite controversial thing I'm saying, actually, because most people would say that's impossible. There's no such thing as objective truth. It's all subjective. I disagree with that. I think we can know truth. And then to initiate your own thoughts, feelings, and actions instead of repeating the same, thoughts, feelings, and actions you repeated every day for the last however many years. So these, in wrapping up, are some of the laws and keys that we maybe touched on today. So we can only heal what we're willing to feel. So if you go to self-fascia release, and even though I've been saying I don't teach it anymore, I'm not saying it's completely useless. It's not. It's just very limited. If you do self-fascia release, if you do kinetics, if you do go to the gym for the first time in a long time, if you do anything and you feel something in your body that's uncomfortable, that's an invitation for you to face something, to feel something, to be with something, to acknowledge what is, and work with it on the way to your goal. So feelings are felt in the body. You're going to encounter them if you do fascia release. Meanings protect us from painful truths. So this is the subconscious acting for us until we are ready to act consciously. Fascia won't change just because we want it to. We have to pass through that gatekeeper first. Until we earn that freedom to pass through the gatekeeper, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. We project onto our bodies, onto the world, onto other people. So if we want to learn universal truths, if we want to know them, then we have to start by seeing ourselves truthfully. And that's a superpower that cannot be overstated. Most of us are trying so hard not to be who we really are, like all our broken parts and our shames and what we feel guilty about or afraid of. We're constantly trying to not be that. But we have to start by seeing ourselves truthfully, or we won't even be able to see our body truthfully or other people truthfully or the world truthfully. And finally, the attempt to escape from pain is what creates more pain. So the key to getting unstuck is acceptance of what is, and that will open the door to freedom. So once again, you hold the keys. Your body knows exactly why, it's doing what it's doing. If you can get beyond your fears and your projections and actually accept what your body's showing you and telling you, then you will hold the keys to change. So in closing, I love this quote by Robert Bly. "It is not our job to remain whole. We came to lose our leaves like the trees and be born again, drawing up from the great roots." Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you are here at the end, it means that you actually watched this whole video. So thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you learned something useful or inspiring or new, perhaps, that you might be able to actually put into use in your life in some meaningful and positive way. If that's true, I'd love for you to share a comment under this video. If you have questions for me, of course, you can post them there as well. And then I'd just like to remind you that if you want to attend free classes like this, where we have Q&A and group discussion after the teaching portion, you can join the free membership tier of the School for Living Science. And we're going to leave the link where you can do that in a pinned comment under this video. So it should be the very first comment you see. And then we're also going to leave it in the description below the video. So if you want to learn about the school, you want to learn about the Kinetics Academy and learning kinetics perhaps, or you just want to learn about that free membership tier, you can find all of those links in the description below this video. Thank you again for watching with me, and I'll see you soon.